From a presidential race that ended with a sizable win to a crucial Senate race upset right here in Ohio. Ahead on Face the State, Democratic and Republican strategists are weighing in on the red wave sweeping the country and what's next for America and the Democratic Party. Plus, as Ohio legislators get ready to head back to the State House, some new faces will soon be joining them. Coming up, the new political makeup of the Ohio House and Senate and which party is gaining seats. Plus, Central Ohio voters passed an increase in local sales taxes, all to help expand and improve public transit. But exactly how will your extra tax dollars be spent, and what can we expect to change? We take those concerns directly to COTA's CEO. In Washington, D.C. this weekend, the peaceful transfer of power is in the works as former president is getting ready to become our next president. Meanwhile, here in Ohio, we're also seeing another political shakeup beginning to unfold. Thanks for joining us for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. This election day had some people celebrating, as others are left questioning how this all happened. From President-elect Donald Trump's big wins in key battleground states to Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown's re-election loss. Plus, voters rejected Ohio's only statewide initiative, Issue 1, after many experts believed it would pass with bipartisan support. And our state Supreme Court now becoming a 6-1 Republican majority, as 2 Democratic justices lose re-election and Republicans win all 3 races. Joining me now to break down all of the big developments from election night are longtime Republican strategist Terry Casey and longtime Democratic strategist and former Ohio Chief of Staff for late Senator John Glenn, Dale Butlin. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Good to be here.
Well, first of all, let's get right to this. I guess just what happened, Terry, in the sense that former President Trump was able to secure such a comfortable victory ultimately Tuesday night?
Well, part of it focusing in on Ohio, when you look at the 6 largest urban counties in Ohio, they only turned out at 66% compared to in the more Republican mid-sized rural counties where they were in the 70 to 77%. So part of it was turnout. There just wasn't the enthusiasm on the Democrat side, particularly among younger voters, urban minorities. So turnout was one of the big factors.
Are you talking about Ohio or nationwide?
I'm looking more at Ohio, but I think a lot of that was also true nationally. And also there's some pollsters and some media people who predicted everything being so close who clearly didn't have a feel for what was really happening out there.
Dale, what do you think happened?
Well, first let me say that this was, to use a highly technical term, an old-fashioned butt-kicking. I know many of my fellow Democrats are despondent today, but let me just say this to them. This is sad, it's depressing, but when you've been around politics as long as I have, you know that in a democracy there are no permanent wins or losses. Trump's going to have a chance to enact pretty much everything he wants, but if voters don't like what they get from him, which I suspect may be the case, we're going to have a chance to reshuffle the deck in 2 years during the midterm elections. So let me leave that aside. What happened? Democrats are tempted to point to a lot of different things. It was a racism, sexism, where people didn't want to vote for a woman, let alone a black woman. Did Biden drop out too late? All the rest. I think the biggest single reason is Kamala Harris was Joe Biden's vice president at a time when, rightly or wrongly, 70% of the American people think the economy is doing poorly, and 70%, over 70% say the country was on the wrong track. Those are enormous headwinds that would sink almost any candidate who was part of that administration. And I think it's remarkable in many ways she came as close as she did.
Why was Bernie Moreno able to secure basically a 4-point victory over a longtime incumbent, Sherrod Brown, who is well known here in Ohio?
Well, part of it was Trump, because he didn't just get 8% win in Ohio. It was like
11 or 12.
11 and a half, roughly. But also the turnout, as I mentioned. But the other factor is with nearly $500 million spent in Ohio, Sherrod had plenty of money, but he tried to, as Tim Ryan did 2 years ago and failed, to be Trump light, because he tried to associate and say, I'm with Trump on some things, blah, 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 blah. And I don't think people really believe that. And also, when you've been there that long, because when I looked at the Emerson poll that was done right before Election Day, Bernie Moreno was doing some things different, with women doing better than average compared to the other polling. There was young and old versus differences there. But Sherrod, like a lot of politicians, sometimes you hit your used by date, and I think people are ready to shift. But again, as Dale mentioned, a lot of it was about people wanting change, not happy with what happened in the last 4 years.
So you may recall, I said on this show several weeks ago that the chances of Sherrod's winning depended almost entirely on the size of Trump's
You did say that, yes.
winning margin in the state. The last 2 times Trump ran, he carried Ohio by 8 points. I said on this show
4 or 5, I think.
I said on this show that if Harris could hold Trump's winning margin down to maybe 5, 6, 7 points, Sherrod had a real shot. As it turns out, that was absolutely right. Sherrod only lost by 4 points in a year that Trump won this state by 11 points. You have to depend, obviously, look, if Trump's going to carry the state, that by definition means for Sherrod to win too, some of the people who voted for Trump have to vote for Sherrod. Well, that's just too many ticket splitters to count on. That doesn't happen much anymore. The last time in this state where voters put a candidate from one party in the White House, or voted for one candidate in the White House and a candidate from a different party in the Senate, was 36 years ago in 1988. Ticket splitting doesn't happen anymore, and yet Sherrod came within 4 points in a year, as I say, that Trump carried the state by 11. Those headwinds were just too strong for Sherrod to survive.
Ohio's going to have 2 new senators. Governor DeWine's going to have to pick a replacement appointment for J.D. Vance's seat as he moves to be vice president. Terry, what are you thinking ideologically the type of person Governor DeWine might be looking for to fill that seat?
Well, a little over a week ago, I spent about 20 minutes with Mike DeWine, and I said, you're going to be very popular this past week. And one of the funny things is he's gotten, both before the election and after, a lot of calls from county commissioners and mayors of nice communities and small towns who say, boy, I'd like to cap my resume by being appointed senator. What the governor's looking for is somebody that can serve well in the Senate, because remember, he had 12 years as a U.S. Senator. He knows how important that is for Ohio, but also he wants somebody that can win in 26, both a primary and a general, because then they've got to turn around and run again in 28. So I think he holds his cards very close. He's a good listener. He's popular. Lots of people are talking to him. But by the way, it's pretty clear from talking to both of them, neither the lieutenant governor or the attorney general, they're focused on governor, not on being appointed senator. So there's some names out there. But again, the governor's getting lots of other names from people that would think that looked nice on my resume.
And Dale, obviously it's not going to be a Democratic senator right now. So I guess what are your hopes in who the governor would select?
You know, I really don't have any thoughts on what he's going to do. I'll leave what the Republicans will do to Terry. He's a lot more well-versed in that than I. I would say that if what I've heard the governor say is that he's going to be most focused on who can win, the next time out. And if that's truly the measure, I don't think that Frank LaRose has much of a shot.
Okay. There'll also be 2 brand new senators with no political, I can't say no political experience at this point, but brand new senators, so not an entrenched person who's in the Senate. How does that impact Ohio in terms of what they will be able to accomplish for the state?
Well, they're both new, but they're going to have the ultimate head of the Senate kind of as the vice president. So Ohio's almost got 3 senators there, but they're all very new. And part of the question is how and where do they want to focus their efforts? And Bernie Moreno was talking the day after the election about wanting to talk to mayors in some of the large counties, some of the
Who
things.
didn't support him.
Right. But he's reaching out, and I think that's important that you reach out and represent all of Ohioans, because the Senate, there's still going to be the filibuster rule on a lot of issues. It's going to take 60 votes. So there's going to need to be some bipartisanship and focusing on some of the issues. But clearly, things like drilling more, producing more energy as a way to fight inflation, to help our country, those are issues that are going to be part of his interests.
Dale, what do you think about a sense of, the being brand new in the Senate with both senators?
Well, it's very difficult when you're a freshman. It's even more difficult when you come in with no government experience, which is what we're going to have with regard to Senator-elect Moreno, who has spent his entire life selling cars. He's had no government experience at all. So I think he's going to look, as Terry said, I think he's going to look to the Senate leadership to tell him how to vote, and I'll be shocked if he doesn't do exactly what they tell him.
I want to, with the time we have left, I do want to touch on issue 1 here. It looked like there was a lot of popular support for it. It ended up failing, I believe, by 8 or 9 points ultimately. This, of course, is the proposed constitutional amendment that would have switched the current redistricting commission to a citizens commission. Dale, what do you think happened here that led to the failure of the issue 1 proposal?
2 things. Despite massively outspending the no side, which the yes side did, and despite the fact that Ohioans have said over and over again they don't like gerrymandering, issue 1 went down. Well, it went down for 2 reasons, in my judgment. Number 1, I think the Republicans who were on the no side cleverly manipulated the ballot language to confuse voters into thinking that voting yes somehow meant you were voting for gerrymandering, when in fact the absolute opposite was true. Equally important, I think, was their decision to turn issue 1 into a referendum on Donald Trump. Because however much Ohioans may hate gerrymandering, they love Donald Trump even more. And so when that happened, I think that was enough to turn the tide.
I agree in part with what Dale said, but even though they had $38 million, the no side only had $8 million. That forced them to be more focused in their messaging. And clearly, when you write an amendment to the Constitution, 13,000 words, it creates confusion, doubt, and many people, when they're in doubt or have questions, they vote no. But clearly, I think it was a messaging failure on the yes side, because for all that money, I don't think they got much bang for their buck.
So what happens going forward? Do you think it's done, it's off the table, and it's going to stay this 7-member redistricting commission that is, elected officials, or perhaps, as Governor DeWine has said, maybe it needs to be tweaked to be more like Iowa?
Well, there's some different options, but it's very difficult on redistricting, because is your priority compactness of districts? Is it keeping communities whole? Is it competitiveness, where you set up some number that you're trying to aim for to get districts? Because Ohio demographically is very divided. People pick to live next to neighbors, whether it's in urban areas or rural areas. So this state is so big and so diverse, it's hard to draw up a perfect plan on all 3 categories.
Do you see anything changing, Dale?
I hope this is not the end for it, because for 2 reasons. Number 1, gerrymandering rigs the system so that the outcome of elections are decided before they're even held. Secondly, it's one of those anti-majoritarian institutions that we have in this country that I think frustrate people. When people say, oh, my vote really doesn't matter, in truth, it often doesn't. If by matter, you mean the government doing what people want it to do. And this is another one of those things that is anti-majoritarian in nature, that I think is very harmful to our system.
Gentlemen, we're going to have to leave it there. The time always flies. I love talking to you both and getting your perspective on such a really a momentous election this time around.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the economy is growing, but inflation is still being felt by most of the country at this point. Millions of Americans, of course. Ahead, a look at how President-elect Donald Trump says he plans to address rising prices and whether or not his plan will actually help. And taking the pulse of the voters. Coming up, how people who backed either presidential candidate are now reacting about America's next commander-in-chief. Welcome back to Face the State. It's no secret the economy is top of mind for many Americans. It's also what was a major factor in how they voted this election. But will President-elect Donald Trump's economic policies help or hurt inflation when he gets back into office? Consumer 10's Clay Gordon looks into his campaign promises.
The so-called Trump trade taking off at the opening bell. Winners of the day, Elon Musk's Tesla, banks, and Bitcoin.
I will govern by a simple motto: Promises made, promises kept.
Let's look at some of those campaign promises and what it could mean for the economy.
President-elect Trump wants to extend all the individual income and estate tax cuts from the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. A series of targeted tax breaks, which includes eliminating federal taxes on tips, Social Security benefits, and overtime pay. Then either 10 or 20% tariffs on every import coming into the U.S., and as much as 60% on all Chinese imports.
Former President Trump has suggested that somehow if you were to apply all these tariffs, that would be enough to fund large tax cuts. Those who view that from a nonpartisan standpoint say that the math doesn't work on that. Not everything on the campaign trail is going to come to pass.
The Federal Reserve wrapped up its November meeting on Thursday, and as Hamrick says,
presidents don't hold a great deal of sway when it comes to bringing prices down. What they can do is do some harm in terms of inflaming inflation.
Interest rates will not be impacted by the election results until 2025. For Consumer 10, I'm Clay Gordon.
Ohio's redistricting commission is staying in place. Ohioans shot down Issue 1 on Election Day, with nearly 54% of voters going against the proposed constitutional amendment. The group behind Issue 1, Citizens Not Politicians, presented it as a solution to end gerrymandering in Ohio by putting citizens in charge of making political maps instead of politicians. Those who supported Issue 1, including the group behind it, say they are disappointed, but they believe this campaign has given them a powerful foundation for the future.
Thousands and thousands of people who voted yes want to end gerrymandering in the state of Ohio. The statistics show that. There's absolutely no doubt. The people that voted no thought they were voting to end gerrymandering because of the manipulated language on the ballot.
We also heard from the group against Issue 1 after it was called. They told us why they believe Ohioans shot down the initiative.
The big issue that voters, I think, moved voters on this issue was accountability. That the Citizen Commission was going to appoint 15 people that could not be removed for gross misconduct. They were self-governing. Voters couldn't take them and had no accountability over the issue at all.
Citizens Not Politicians tells us that right now they do not have plans for another ballot initiative. Meanwhile, a big win for Republicans and a major shakeup on Ohio's Supreme Court. Every Republican won their race, giving them a 6-1 majority moving forward. Incumbent Republican Justice Joseph Deters defeated incumbent Democratic Justice Melody Stewart. Deters left his seat to challenge Stewart. His new 6-year term will start on January 2nd. In the race for Deters' current seat, Republican Judge Daniel Hawkins defeated Democratic Judge Lisa Forbes. Hawkins will serve out the remaining 2 years left in Deters' original term. And Republican Judge Megan Shanahan defeated sitting Justice and Democrat Michael Donnelly. Her 6-year term will start on January 1st. As for the State House, we saw a little bit of change here. Every House seat was up for re-election. The Ohio House went from 67 Republicans and 32 Democrats to the Democrats flipping 2 seats, making it a 65-34 Republican majority. And in the Ohio Senate, Democrats also flipped 2 seats, but Republicans still hold a 24-9 Senate majority. This means Republicans will once again maintain control of the House, Senate, Governor's office, and Supreme Court, a complete control they have held since 2011 when Republicans won back the House and Governor's office. Well, it's been 5 days since the election, but supporters of President-elect Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are still grappling with the results. However, the feelings are quite different depending on whose side they were on. Some are happy and excited about the next 4 years. Others are very disappointed and concerned.
The I-71 North rest stop in Delaware County provides a respite from the road for a cross-section of travelers, some from the area, others just passing through.
Glasgow, Kentucky.
Dave Hoffmeister thinks the country needed a different direction.
I was pleased with the way Trump handled the economy and the border in his first term, and I'm looking forward to doing it again.
From Connecticut.
Democrat Jim DeVita says he's very curious about what Trump's next term may hold.
Let's put it this way, it's going to be a very revengeful 4 years coming up.
I'm from Chicago.
Ellen Anderson leans toward Trump but didn't vote. She says not because she doesn't care, but because she finds it hard to trust the powers that be.
I think both sides have said valuable things and both sides have said very stupid things.
But she says she's hopeful. So is Trump supporter Anna Evans.
I'm actually from Russia.
Anna says she was adopted from Russia when she was 10 and is now a U.S. citizen living in Marysville, Ohio.
I actually have family in Russia that are in war right now, so me seeing that he won is going to really help out my family.
I'm shocked and I'm very disappointed.
Mike Ewitz is a legal permanent U.S. resident from Canada. He pays close attention to American politics and pays his taxes, but can't vote.
I'm in a field where science rules and I'm fact-based, and I just don't understand how the choices were made.
Well, up next, expansion. 10 TV's Angela Ann goes one-on-one with COTA's CEO to see what's in store for the transit service after Central Ohio voters passed an increase in a local sales tax to pay for those changes. We're back with a look at another major election issue that affects more than just Franklin County. Issue 47, also known as the Link Us levy for the Central Ohio Transit Authority. It passed with 57% of the vote, giving COTA the green light to go big. But it also means Franklin County now has the highest sales tax rate in Ohio at 8%. Only Cuyahoga County has that same tax rate. Starting January, this new sales tax will affect anyone coming into Franklin County to buy things, from cars to clothing to even candy. 10 TV's Angela Ann sat down with COTA's CEO and president, Monica Tejas-Fowler, who says now is the time to build up transit before Central Ohio's expected growth.
We're excited and ready to get to work with our communities and partners across the region to make Link Us a reality.
So what does that mean, though? Like, if I'm a bus rider or if I'm not a bus rider, what does that connectivity look like?
Yeah, what it looks like is, ultimately we're looking at 45% more COTA service, and it'll come in the form of 14 new or improved lines, 8 new on-demand zones, which is our COTA Plus, additional service and frequency, as well as more paratransit services in our region. But what you can expect to see within the first 5 years, for instance, is 3 of those rapid transit lines, bus rapid transit line, will be up and operational. We're talking about West Broad, East Main, and the Northwest Corridor, the first phase of that, as well as 150 miles of those new sidewalks, trails, and bike paths will be either fully completed or under construction by the first 5 years. We'll also have already increased our frequency and extended service hours so that we're really capturing our second and third shift workers within our region. But in the first year, what you can expect, even in 2025, you can expect to start to see that service, the service hours extended. So we're capturing that late night service, as well as increased frequency to many lines that we know need it. We're in a good place now where if we put this infrastructure in place, we'll be able to manage congestion in a way that people who decide to stay in their vehicles will not be as impacted by the congestion because of growth.
And that is just part of Angela's 10-minute interview. You can watch the entire conversation streaming now on our weekly special, This Week in Boomtown, on 10 TV Plus. You can download 10 TV Plus for free on your Amazon Fire, Roku, or Apple TV. Thank you for joining me this week for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. I'll see you back here next Sunday morning at 11:30.